Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another round of the Middle of the Pack Racing League GT4 Championship for 2022, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform known only as iRacing, available on PC. Today marks round 5 of the 9-round calendar, and we are continuing the story of the Americas stage, which last time out kicked off at Road America, but now we've headed to the state of New York for Watkins Glen International. Nicknamed the Glen, this circuit will see the highest average lap speeds of any of the rounds on the calendar. It's going to be fast, it's going to be furious, and over the 11 corners of the circuit, we're sure to see plenty of battles, many a scrape or two as well, and well, we'll have to wait and see how the story of our championship continues here tonight. Our schedule, of course, for tonight being as follows: times in British summertime, that's BST or UTC +1. In approximately 14 minutes time, we'll be getting underway with the qualifying session, which will last 15 minutes, split into 2 equal halves for our AM and Pro class drivers, and that will determine our grid order for the one and only race we have on the calendar tonight, and that is the sprint race, and that will be kicking off straight after at 6:30 this evening, a 20-minute race where the only goal, the only strategy is to get to the head of your class and stay there until the very end, and if you can pick up the fastest lap along the way as well, you'll get some extra points to go into the championship bank account. But with our drivers keeping that in mind, in the commentary booth is myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain of Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And today's broadcast is being brought to you live via one of 2 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, you can tune in via the YouTube channel under Paul Walsh or TX141TX. Alternatively, if you are a Twitch user, you can go to twitch.tv/TX141 to tune in on Twitch, and we can interact with you guys and girls in the respective chats. We have both of them available. Speaking of which, we say hello to the YouTube chat, John Lauzon, and also in the Twitch chat to both Max Lee Porter 80 and also GT Eddie. Good evening to you, and to all of you tuning in, I hope you're doing well, enjoying the weekend, and a special welcome to our viewers from the United States of America, given it is Independence Day weekend, with the 4th of July falling as of tomorrow. Today is the 3rd of July, and we should point out very briefly for the uninitiated that whilst this broadcast is live, the racing itself is not quite live. The racing took place as of earlier this week on Wednesday, but we'll bring you a post-round broadcast with the intention of making it as close as possible to a live experience. So I, as your commentator and host, do not know who's won. I don't know how the race plays out or how qualifying plays out. It'll be completely raw. There are sure to be some surprises, and therefore it'll be as close as possible to that live experience. Well, we talked about the calendar earlier, and let's carry on the story of the calendar. It is the case that we completed the F1 stage for our opening 3 rounds that formed stage 1. Started off at Interlagos all the way back on the 25th of May, and then we headed to the Red Bull Ring on the 1st of June and wrapped up the F1 stage at Suzuka in Japan on the 8th of June. We then took a week's break before returning last week with round number 4, kicking off stage 2, the America stage at Road America. And today we are at Watkins Glen, albeit the race itself occurred on the 29th of June, the Wednesday earlier in this week. And after today, we'll be heading to Daytona Road Course for the second of our 3 feature race rounds, those 45-minute races. And that will be on the 6th of July, the race itself, but the broadcast will be brought to you on Sunday, the 10th of July. More details on that later. After which we'll then be having our second mid-season break before returning for the Endurances stage, and that'll be the 3 rounds which are focused on circuits that typically feature on World Endurance calendars, whether it be GT World, alternatively the World Endurance Championships. These circuits are known for being a staple of those calendars in the real world racing, and it's Mount Panorama, or Bathurst as known in short, which kicks us off for round number 7 on the 20th of July before we head to Central Europe, particularly Belgium, for Spa-Francorchamps on the 27th of July, and then we bring the curtain down on the series in emphatic fashion at the Nordschleife loop of the Nürburgring on the 3rd of August. And my goodness, that is going to be one race to watch out for. Indeed, all the races lying ahead are going to be ones that you'll definitely want to tune into, but let's not forget the Glen tonight. And well, before we come on to talking a little bit about our circuit, it's only fair we cover the championship standings as they currently stand going into tonight's round. We start off with the Pro Drivers' Championship, and we can see here, this is the overall championship, not the America Stage Specific Championship. We'll come on to that shortly. But overall, in the Pro class, it is the case that after a very dramatic day of racing at Road America, John Lauzon holds the lead of the championship by only a single point over Mr. Consistent, known as Edwin Onofre there, in P2 on 73 points. And only a 3 further points back is Jerome Bajulas there in P3 on 70 points. These 3 drivers have all been looking very strong and finding their form over the course of the season. But do keep in mind as well, we had the absence of Austin Farr last time out, and he was leading going into the round at Road America. He now finds himself in P4 and 65 points. And unfortunately, by the looks of things, as I look at my entry list for today, Austin Farr's not taking part as of this round, but we do hope he comes back in future rounds for the simple reason he'll be right up there taking the fight to the top 3. We then have John Wilding in P5, really the best of the rest right now, outside of the top 4 of 49 points, but where of the fact 3 points behind is Jordan Butler there in P6 and 46 points. And then we have Sam Van Olst, Henry Morse, Tanner Dibble and Rocco Avaf completing the Pro Drivers' Championship standings, with Daniel Downing being unranked as he's yet to take part in a round of the season. Meanwhile, in the Instant Count Point Championship, it is the case we can see that on only 11 instant points, we have Henry Morse, but ahead of him, Tanner Dibble, who leads the way on 3 instant points, albeit I think that Tanner Dibble may not have taken part in enough rounds to qualify for the Instant Count Point Championship, but that will be determined at the end of the season. Rocco Avaf nipped on his heels there on 5 instant points, and at the opposite end of the spectrum, standing on 52, but he is able to reduce the rate at which he was building up instant points last time out of Road America. Jerome Bajulaz, who now on 52, will really want to continue that trend of minimising the number of instant points he picks up round after round, so that way he does not fall away to the likes of, say, Jordan Butler on 43 or John Lauzon on 41. Remembering there's a prize up for grabs for our drivers who have taken part in at least 8 rounds of the championship and have the lowest number of instant points come the end of the season. Well, that is the Pro class, but then we come to the AM class standings, and we can see here the complexion is rather similar. We have 3 drivers who are right up there at the tip of the spear. Fernando Takashi, the driver in the AM class, who really has been the one who hasn't been the strongest in terms of pace, but he's been the one to pull those results out time and time again, and most notably both at Suzuka and last time out at Road America. Takahashi now leads by 5 points over Justin Braggon, with Jermaine Warren there in P3 on 71 points, only 1 point behind Braggon. You can imagine the 3 protagonists here will all be going toe-to-toe, with Jermaine Warren really being the fastest of the 3 drivers from what we've seen on pace. Justin Braggon being between Takahashi and Warren in terms of pace versus consistency, and Takahashi being Mr. Consistent. But we do have to keep in mind Takahashi also recently making that change to the Mercedes AMG GT4 that arrived in iRacing only a few weeks ago, and that change seems to have done him very well, and will we see that continue tonight? In P4, Lee Porter at 63 points. Don't count him out, nor Mark Senegal there. It is the case P4 and P5. The 2 drivers are looking to try and get their way into the top 3. And indeed, if any of our top 3 drop key points, they'll be there to pick them up. In P6, meanwhile, we have Duncan Moraes there on 53 points, and he's creeping away from Kenny B. Smith, or Kevin B. Smith as he's known in full, on 45 points in P7, with a 5-point gap advantage over Rodney Felker there in P8. Stefan Chalafu is in P9, and the top 10 is being completed by Roger Ganesh on 21 points, with Albert Brand and Craig Parks just outside the top 10, but trying to creep in. And we have Antonin Deu, who has yet to be ranked, as he's yet to take part in a round of this series. In the Instant Count Point Championship, meanwhile, it is the case on only 2 instant points. It's Albert Brand there, leading ahead of the likes of Roger Ganesh, also Kenny B. Smith and Craig Parks, and at the opposite end of the spectrum, and trying to reduce those instant points, where it's very close at the moment. But Mark Senegal currently the lowest placed on 31, and he's not too far away from the likes of Duncan Moraes, Lee Porter, or Rodney Felker. It is very close to that Instant Point Count Championship, and you can imagine just one major instant could turn things upside down in short order. In the team standings, meanwhile, whilst there's no prizes up for grabs, we love to talk about the team standings. It is the case that Middle of the Pack Racing have increased their lead to Blue Flag Motorsports, now up to 30 points as of this round, after a brilliant performance at Road America. Middle of the Pack Racing really dominating the podium slot, and now it's the case, can they compound and build on that advantage they've gained over the course of Road America? Blue Flag Motorsports will have to keep in mind that whilst they're pursuing MOP, they have also got Goldwing Motorsports close behind, only 8 points behind them. And then we have DNA Racing on 103, who are really the best of the rest in P4, the best part of which 22 points ahead of Sunday GT Turtles, with Ascension Racing a further 8 points behind, and then Delta Motorsports and Motus Racing bring up the rear P7 and P8 respectively. Then, coming from the overall standings, we head to the Cup Championship standings, or the Stage Championship standings as we prefer to refer to them now, as we look to the America stage. And in the Pro class, it is the case that Tanner Dibble, after the win at Road America, leads on 25 points, 2 clear of John Lauzon. But do keep in mind, John Lauzon had to battle his way back up to P2 after a disastrous opening 5 minutes of the sprint race. Saw him chop all the way down the field, and he charged his way back up in the McLaren. Will he be able to do the same again today? Or perhaps not have the instant at the start and instead lead the way? That will be the big challenge. John Wilding, P3 on 20 points, 3 clear of Jordan Butler, with Edwin Offret and Jerome Bajulaz completing the Cup standings, with Austin Farr, Daniel Downing, Henry Morse, Rocco Avaf and Sam Van Olst unable to take part last time out, and we hope to see them out on circuit today. Meanwhile, in the America Stage Championship, it is Justin Braggett who leads on 26 points, 5 clear of Fernando Takashi, with Justin Braggett really being the dominant force at Road America, but you can imagine that Takashi will be looking to come back strong here tonight. Stefan Chalafu in a first P3 of the series for the driver. He was able to come home with 19 points in great fashion, with Kenny B. Smith close behind, and a great battle between the two of them that went to the checkered flag for that final spot on the podium at Road America. Lee Porter in P5. I think Finn was more on the table last time out, and we look forward to seeing what Porter's able to achieve here. And then we have Albert Brand and Jermaine Warren both tied on 15 points, ahead of Mark Senegal, who another driver had a difficult day at Road America and will be looking to bounce back strong tonight. Unranked, Antonin Deu, Craig Parks, Duncan Moraes, Rodney Felker and Roger Ganesh, as they've yet to take part in a round of the America stage. But that is the standings covered. We now come to our track, and we are at Watkins Glen International, located near the village of Watkins Glen in the state of New York in the United States of America. This circuit, nicknamed the Glen, is an affectionately known circuit amongst its peers around the Americas for the simple reason this circuit has seen it all in terms of car classes ever since it was opened in 1956. If a major series hasn't raced at Watkins Glen, it's probably not worth talking about that major series, because this circuit is fast, highly cambered corners, a multitude of straights, major braking zones. That means overtaking comes thick and fast, but it is the case if you gain a position going into one corner, you could lose out in the run to the next corner due to the straights and the battles in the slipstream. 11 corners make up this circuit, the image provided to us by simracingwiki.com, but I don't think this picture quite tells justice, and we are running the full variant of the circuit, including the boot loop as well, that runs all the way from turn 5 through to turn number 9. So it's the case we're going the full distance, and these GT4 machines will certainly lap up the circuit in joy. But we then must come to our rules quickly, and as always, in terms of setups, this is a fixed setup series where our drivers must run the baseline setup as provided by iRacing, and car fuel loads have been restricted to 50%. In qualifying, the session should be broken into 2 equal halves, with the first half being for our AM drives, the second half being for our Pro drives. So 2 7.5-minute sessions, if you will, within the 15-minute qualifying session. And in terms of the sprint race, the race will start under a manual double-file rolling start, with the formation being held up to the start-finish line, after which drivers may go racing. Each driver will have 1 fast repair available, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 25 or more instant points. When we've yet to see any drive-through penalties, we hope it stays that way. But that's enough rules, regulations and introductions. It's time for us to head back to the live cameras at the circuit and see how our drivers are getting on in this final practice session. And as they make the way on around right now, it is the case that John Lauzon currently setting those timing screens alight with 154.825. And well, we do know the Blue Flag Motorsports driver has got a lot to do with regards to achieving well here today after having to bounce back after that disastrous opening 5 minutes at the sprint race at Road America. And I think today his aim is going to be one thing and one thing only: win and don't drop it, because we know that Lauzon is perhaps the strongest pro driver here outside of Jerome Bajulaz, but it is the case that this circuit, a power circuit, indeed our American circuits, different from the F1 stage, being less technical in their nature and more about point and squirt, where you want to get through that apex as soon as possible, get back on the throttle and charge to the next corner. It's all about heavy braking and hard on the throttle here in the United States of America, and Watkins Glen personifies that massively. And with the high camber corners, particularly turns 5, 6, 7 and 8, it is the case we're going to be seeing our drivers need to get on the throttle so quickly in order to maximise that lap time. Meanwhile, in the AM class, it seems that Jermaine Warren, currently in the pits, has set the fastest lap of anybody so far in the AM class there, the MOP racing driver, and he's currently parked up waiting to go. We've only got 1.5 minutes remaining in this pre-practice session before we go into qualifying, but we look to our Mercedes drivers, of course, the big question mark being that Mercedes AMG GT4, just how strong is it compared to its peers? And we saw at Road America, it seems to do very well on the straights, but was very prone to understeer under corner entry, particularly under heavy braking, and we see Fernando Takashi giving an example of that as he made his way through turn number 6 there, just understeering a little bit wide of corner apex. But to be fair, with the high camber run on these corners, if you understeer slightly deep into the corner, it doesn't hurt your lap time too much. You can still bring the car around, albeit you then have to target a bit of a later apex, and you lose average apex speed compared to your exit speed, and that's something that'll be on the minds of our drivers as you see the privateer coming down here into turn number, well, I believe it is number 9. We've had turn number 8, I should say, heading up towards turn 9 now as he heads on through. But indeed, all of our drivers itching itching to go racing. And we do have the newcomer today joining us as of this round and onwards from DNA Racing, and that is Jan Sauber here, running in the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4. He'll be racing in what is the Pro class here, and we wish him all the best of luck indeed. I think all down the paddock, our drivers are very happy to see Sauber taking part as of today, and well, we'll keep our eyes on it. The Porsche should not be the strongest car here, to be fair, given the fact that this car is known more for its handling characteristics rather than its top speed and acceleration. But much like what we saw from Majulas last time out of Road American qualifying, it could be the case that Sauber qualifies well and then has to battle hard to hold on to a strong qualifying position as the checker flag comes out this practice session, and now it's time for us to get ready to go racing, and we will have to wait and see whether Sauber's able to put on a show-stopping performance tonight, as all our drivers now are sent to the pit lane and it's time for us to transition over into that qualifying session. So as the 15 minutes gets underway here, it is the case the circuit will be quiet initially as we're waiting for all of our drivers to gradually make their way out, and it of course will be to our IAM drivers to make the way out of the circuit first and foremost. They'll get 7.5 minutes, and the lap time around here just under 2 minutes. That will give our drivers approximately 2 to 3 flying laps depending on how they manage their laps. Some drivers will of course look to try and use as many laps as possible to set a time. Others may set a bank lap, then have a positioning lap where they decide to essentially find some clear space on circuit, or try to get into the toe of another driver at distance over the course of the lap, and then they'll go for another flying lap. So we'll see some tactical play here over the course of the qualified session, and it will be to the AM drivers to initially build up and lay down that rubber, which our pro drivers will then exploit. As we do see here Lee Porter rolling his way on through, but meanwhile we look a little bit further back here and we do see Kenny Smith making his way through the kick of 3 and now all the way up towards the bus stop chicane. In fact, that was the kick of 4 there, I correct myself, and as he rolls his way through the bus stop chicane, very tricky double apex section here as he rolls his way through, not technically classified as a corner number of the bus stop chicane. He rolls through there and now down into turn number 5, and as he rolls his way on through here, and that Aston Martin V8 Vantage, of course powered by a Mercedes power plant, not an Aston Martin power plant. That's something which I didn't know until recently. I knew about the GT3 car running a Mercedes bi-turbo engine, but I didn't know about the GT4 also running the same, but looking very fierce right now. Kenny Smith, one driver to watch out for. He's been building confidence over the course of the season since his debut a couple of rounds ago, and we're expecting plenty good things from him as he makes his way now around to the latter portion of the lap and gets himself set up for his first flying lap. But indeed, our first flying lap of the session will be in the hands of Lee Porter in the McLaren 570S, and as he makes his way through to the final 2 quarters here, coming through turn 10 and then into 11, we'll jump aboard and bring you that flying lap very shortly as he rolls his way through into turn 11, and now it's time for that flying lap. Coming out of the final corner here, using the full exit width there, and now charging down the start-finish straight to cross that timeline and head into turn number 1. It is the case, we can see him building up that speed before braking at that 200-metre board, rolling the car down through the gearbox and getting a nice apex there, before stabbing back at the throttle, going through 3rd gear. Now all the way out the gearbox, he goes through the long right-hander in turn 2, completely flat out here through 2 through to 4, where it's the case you just got to balance the car and have faith in turning in early. Through 3 he goes, still flat out, through turn number 4 here. It's a long run up towards the bus stop chicane. They'll be reaching their highest possible speeds down the back straight here, up towards the bus stop chicane. And as they come roaring on through, it is the case that Lee Porter right now dabbing the brakes there as he enters into the chicane, rolling the car over the first 2 apex curves. They're doing the same for the last 2. Now pulling the car over to the left before coming into the braking zone for turn number 5. Coming down the gearbox to 4th gear. Now building up that throttle nice and early as he rolls his way out of turn 5, using the runoff area there as well. Now braking into turn 6, he makes his way into the boot loop, and as he comes on through here, a downhill cambered corner in 3rd gear, accelerated out. Not the easiest of runs then. You can see it was a bit unsettled through apex, but he put it back together and now into turn number 7 here, braking down to 3rd gear and getting on the pound nice and early, using the camber of the road to push the car through the corner and have that confidence to get back on the throttle. But you'll notice there he used a bit too much apex curve and that unsettled the car. He'll correct that for his next flying lap. There's a couple of little mistakes here, but to be fair, Lee Porter is delivering quite nicely as he rolls his way to turn number 8, and as he comes on through here, quite a bit of runoff area our drivers can exploit as they make their way out the corner, before he now heads into turn number 9, the uphill apex crest, and as he rolls the car through, staying in 3rd gear, not coming down to 2nd there, I think just trying to keep the revs nice and comfortable in that mid-range. Now coming into turn 10, A dab of the brakes, he flows into the left-hander in 4th gear before building on that throttle once again, using the runoff area there to settle the car before pulling it over to the left for turn number 11. Another dab of the brakes, staying in 4th gear, and as he exits out the corner, it's a smooth lap. A couple of small mistakes, but still a very smooth lap. And what's going to be the opening AM time for this session from Lee Porter, it is a 56.782. Albert Brand immediately goes faster in the Porsche 718 there, 56.328, 4/10 faster. And as he makes his way over through, we see Stefan Chalafu going even faster in the McLaren in a 56.3. But then it's Jermaine Warren who goes fastest with 56.279. Kenny Smith not able to get close enough, but Justin Bragg, meanwhile, my goodness, literally 8/10 of a second faster than Warren at 55.446. And that Mercedes AMG looking very comfortable as he makes his way out of the first corner and now on to his next flying lap here, as we see Mark Senegal as well in the McLaren going second fastest for 56.091, but only Bracken of our AMs so far able to deliver a 55. Everybody else in the 56s or higher, as we see Fernando Takashi there goes P6 to 56.452. So it does look as though the McLaren here quite strong and not to be underestimated, but the Mercedes in particular, when that lap is hooked up, seems to be in a class of its own based on one flying lap, but we still have plenty of time to go. Rodney Felker, meanwhile, well, he's just come out the pits for a 3rd time. It's not going well for Rodney Felker, it must be said, in that Aston Martin. I think he's had some difficulties with the car. The team have had to do some repair work to the car over the course of this qualifying session so far, something wrong with the engine, and as he makes his way out of turn 10 and into 11 right now, Felker trying to get himself set up for a flying lap, as we're hearing that Albert Brand's had a bit of an off at what was turn number 7. In fact, what's happened to Albert Brand? He's had a spin of some description. Unfortunately, we can't take a look back at that due to technical limitations with the replay file we're using, but it is the case that Brand goes slowly there, and I think he's had a bit of a nightmare coming out to turn number 7 and used a bit too much runoff, alternatively too much apex curb, and the car has turned from what I'm hearing in my ear. But meanwhile, we cut back to Rodney Felker, who goes on to his first flying lap, and he's leaving this very late. I think he's only going to get one lap here, so Felker is going to have to deliver. He's going to have to deliver quickly, because otherwise it will be the case that he's going to be starting well down the order, as Lee Porter improves to 56.501 off camera. That puts him P7 provisional, but he's still got a lot of time to find right now, as we have one more lap for all of our drivers as they head on round. Chalafu goes faster. He goes up to P2. Oh, goodness me, and Felk there missing his turning point for the second part of the bus stop chicane. As he comes down to turn 5, he commits to a lap there, but I think he had to really lift off for track limits, and it is the case he's not really hooking this lap up so far. But again, it may be the case he hasn't had too much time to practice. He's started to put that practice in qualifying. He'll focus more on the race, which some drivers do, to be fair. Not all of them have as much time as others to practice. Some of them have to practice on the fly, and I think Felker here really having a difficult day at the office so far, as he comes through turn number 7 right now. Hooks that up very nicely, to be fair, and uses the runoff space perfectly. So it does look as though he's hooking up some of these camber corners pretty well in that Aston Martin. I think it may be the case that the bus stop chicane outwitted it for the time being. As our pro drivers, I'm looking at my pit box, out the commentary box window right now, and I can see that our pro drivers are in their pit boxes inches ago. I think in fact John Lauzon has just slightly inched out of his pit box there, but I don't think the stewards are going to complain too much about that. Such is the feedback. And ooh, Felker parking up again, and Rodney Felker will not enter a time. He will be starting last of our AMs as we look back to our AM drivers who are still out on the circuit. I think Felker there with the invalidated lap was just doing the rest of the lap to get a feel for what would be his future laps around the circuit in terms of race conditions. But right now we can see here Chalafu making his way down towards turn number 8, and as he does, he's improving partially, but not any major improvement so far, as he makes his way up towards turn number 9. Meanwhile, Lee Porter heading on around here, and he's going to be the first driver to come to the end of his qualified session as our pros are making their way out of the pit lane. And we can see here it is the case that Lee Porter, as he rolls his way on through, he improved it. Ooh, and a whack to the wall there, and that knocks him quite nicely into the pit lane, but that is a hard knock, and Lee Porter will not be improving as he jumps to his pit box. Meanwhile, Chalafu comes out the final call. That wall very nasty, can be hit hard, and we can see here Chalafu comes across the line. Can he improve further? He doesn't improve. He's going to be starting P2 at most. What about Jermaine Warren? He takes that P2 over Chalafu with a 55.564. He's only a 10th of a Braggon, but nobody able to take the fight to Braggon so far. But Justin Braggon goes even faster by 2 tenths from 55.247, leading and raising that bar. Albert Brand improves to P4 in the end of the Porsche 718, and he is ahead of Mark Senegal, who raises it to P5, but has jumped to the pit lane. And we look to Fernando Takahashi, the only AM driver still out there on a flying lap here, and can Takashi get out of P6 right now? I think it's going to be difficult here. He is 3.5 tenths of a mark Senegal, and well, in terms of the lap so far, well, Takashi has improved in sectors 1 and 2. Subsectors 3 and 4, he has not improved on his previous best, however, so it's all going to come down to the final sector as he rolls his way, and he's aborted the lap. He's not happy with this, so Takashi, well, we started P6 in the end, and I believe Kenny Smith is making his way on the round right now, but this lap will be invalid as he has passed the 7.5 minute threshold for the qualified session, so he'll be starting P8, but definitely a few surprises in there. Takahashi P6 at most, but at the other end, Shalafu once again really building that momentum, P3 in the AM class, and Brangan taking that pole position by looks of things. As meanwhile, we look to John Lauzon here, who in the pro class is leading the pro class round right now, but you can see behind him, that is Jerome Bajulaz in the 718 Porsche as they make their way into the final corner, wanting to be in that slipstream, and as they all roll their way through here, coming past that exit wall, we now do ride on board with Jerome Bajulaz here as we get a lap on board with the Porsche 718 driver in the slipstream of John Lauzon here, and you'll just see the difference between the two cars on those straights where the Porsche just will not have that top speed as they roll their way out of turn 1. Now, of course, the thing for Bajulaz, when he's in the dirty air of that McLaren in front of him, he will experience some additional understeer on corner entry, and he'll have to combat that by braking slightly earlier, about 5 to 10 metres earlier, and go for a slightly earlier turn-in point to get the car through the corner. But this is where he'll benefit in the long run from turn 1 up towards the bus stop chicane, going through turns 2 through to 4 along the way. And as he makes his way into the chicane here, looking for his brake marker, that 400-metre board on the left-hand side, just dabbing the brakes and rolling the car in. Very smooth over the curbs there. Very bouncy though, to be fair, that Porsche 718, and as they roll the way down through turn 5, you can just see he misses the apex there slightly, and that's that dirty air just causing the car to come out shy and wide. And as they make the way down to 6, into the boot loop they go here. We can see the difference in lines as Lauzon gets it very wrong there, and actually experiences quite a bit of aggressive understeer on the front end of that McLaren. That front just not wanting to turn in, and then it's almost he's had to siphon the steering wheel. But as they roll their way now through turn number 7, you can see how much Bajulaz has closed up to his period front, and he'll get a massive amount of toe now in the run out of turn 7 up towards 8 down the back straight here. And as they come roaring on through, it's going to be the case into that braking zone, braking that 200-metre board. And I think Bajulaz, if he got any closer to the back of Lauzon at this point, I think he'd be screaming that his lap would be held up here. But of course, he's put himself in this position to be that close to the 570S driver in front of him, so therefore he's only got himself to blame if this lap falls apart. But as he makes his way out to 9 and up into 10 here, it's looking a very good lap right now. And as they roll the way through the left-hander of 10, you'll see he's going to have to hesitate on the throttle very slightly, just that way he doesn't go into the back of his driver in front. And as they come through turn number 11, we can see Lauzon there, ooh, whack to the wall, and he's going to peel out the way. But for Bajulaz, no such problem. And as he comes across the line here, it's definitely going to be a faster lap. But meanwhile, Jordan Butler behind goes even faster, and then it's Tanner Dibble in the Mercedes AMG who goes fastest on a 54.954, and then Edwin Offre comes out of nowhere and says, hold my beer, gents, it's the case, I'm going to go even faster than all of you at 54.799. Well, in Offre, the Ascension Racing driver, we've seen how much he's been improving since joining that pro class at the start of the season, having come from the AM class at the TCR Championship earlier on this year, and right now he really does seem to be settling into that Aston Martin. He seems so hooked up in that car, and it's looking fantastic. 1.5 tenths faster, but do keep in mind that is the first round of flying laps for our pro drives, and we're expecting those lap times to improve even further as the fuel is drained out the car, more rubber is laid down, track temperature rises, and it will be the optimal conditions for that final flying lap. But they've only got 3 minutes, less than 3 minutes in fact now, so they will have at most 2 more laps, including the one they're on, as we're hearing that Sauber has gone P3 on his debut. And he's leaving the pit lane right now, and he'll just have enough time, will Jan Sauber, to get one more lap in. But he's going to have to be quick about this. He hasn't got all day to make his way around right now. But to be fair, the one thing he has done, you could look at that circuit map in the top right corner of your screen. You'll see there he's all alone in the run through turns 2 through to 4 right now, whereas the rest of the pro class have decided all to be together in the run through turns 7 into 8. And he's decided, I think, to just simply give himself clear track and not have to worry about that potential risk of his slipstream partner in front of of him, holding him up at a particular corner, and this is a gamble, but it could be a good one. But speaking of gambles right now, we can see Jerome Bajulas here leading the rest of the Pro Pack round to complete their second flying lap in that group, and as he comes up through here, he has improved in subsectors 2 and 3, but meanwhile in subsector 4 he's a little bit down in his personal best, but it will all come down to this final sector as he makes his way to the timing line here, and as he makes his way across, what will it be this time? It's going to be no improvement. Meanwhile, Jordan Butler does improve. He does improve position, but he improves to P5, and Tanner Dibble also improves to a 54.880. Meanwhile, Edwin Offred goes even faster on a 54.681. I can definitely see there in the Twitch chat, GT Eddie, who is Edwin Offred, saying having practice in Gran Turismo 7 when they added Watkins Glen to it. Whereas the case, that practice is definitely paying off right now, even if it's not on the same sim racing platform. As we see in Offred really lighting those timing screens up. And well, can he go even further? Can he get his maiden pole position in this series? That would be a major achievement. As in front of him there, that's the Mercedes, I believe, of John Wilding. As we look to the other Mercedes AMG of Dibble, they're drifting his way through the bus stop chicane, such as the run through and the amount of brake bias he's running towards the rear of the car. And as he makes his way down through turn 5 right now, that Mercedes definitely looking very hooked up here as he heads on through and into turn 6. As he makes his way down into the left-hander here, it is the case, well, we can see building on up as he heads around, just winding up through these corners. That's the thing with these cambered corners, it's almost as if you're on a spring waiting to be released. You're being wound up and then you have to get on the throttle right when it's the right time to do so, and it feels wonderful when you hook it up and hit the throttle at the perfect time. It doesn't feel so great when you hit the throttle too early or too late, of course, if you lose out so much time. And as he goes charging down the back straight here towards turn number 8, you can see a little bit further back, that's John Wilding in the rear of the pitch here. The two Mercedes looking very menacing. I can definitely tell you, when you look at the fronts of these GT4 cars, that Mercedes, that does stay in your mind when you walk away from it. But as he rolls his way through turn number 8 right now, Wilding, he's got a lot to do if he wants to improve, as the checkered flag is out in this qualifying session. And I can tell you that Edwin Offer has parked it in the pit, as has Butler, and I believe that's 2 of our pros who've parked his on in. Meanwhile, we still have multiple drivers out there, including Jerome Bajulas here, as he makes his way out of the final corner. In front of him, that is John Lauzon, who's had another moment with the wall coming out the final corner. We saw some sparks fly there. Lauzon does improve, goes P9 overall, as Bajulas does not improve. Meanwhile, it's the case that Jan Sauber making his way around on his lonely lap here as he heads out of turn number 7, and none of our pros improving beyond the ones we've spoken about. So right now it is Edwin Offred who is on course to take his first pole position in this series, and the only driver between him and doing that is Jan Sauber right now, with Sauber currently down in the opening 3 subsectors. 2 more sectors to go. Will he be able to improve at all? But still, a P3 on his debut in qualifying here in the Pro Class, that's nothing to laugh about. That's an achievement given how close this Pro Class is. But the biggest surprise there, John Lauzon, P9 overall, last of our pros right now. It is not a happy day at the office on the McLaren driver, and I wonder where it's going to be another uphill battle come the race, as meanwhile we see Jan Sauber getting very well through 10 and 11 and going for a spin there with the rear left tyre just going onto the grass slightly, and Sauber pushing. He was up in subsector 4 and I think pushing too hard in the end, and that is going to be his qualifying session done and dusted when all is said and done. And well, he went for it, the DNA Racing driver, but in the end that is all she wrote, as we see Edwin Offer in the end taking the overall pole position ahead of Tanner Dibble. We wait for confirmation, of course, because we cannot tell if some of these laps have been invalidated due to track limits, but we just wait for the tip over now to the formation of the grid, and then we will take you through the finalised grid positions before we go for 20 minutes of racing. Indeed, Watkins Glen already proving very tricky for some of our drivers here. Some major upsets in the Pro Class, and the fact that Justin Bragan is P4 in the overall, the AM driver there who's on pole position in the AM class, has separated himself from the rest of his AM peers by a sizable margin. The only one who's close, Jermaine Warren, who'll be starting P7, and then Shalafu, who leads the rest of the AM drivers there from P10 downwards, and that is a major achievement from Shalafu. But we see Rodney Velk there with no lap time set in the end, and I do wonder whether he's going to be able to make it to the grid for the purposes of the race, as we continue to wait here for the transition to the formation of that grid. Now, the grid formation should be occurring in any moment. I believe we are just waiting 1 or 2 more minutes here for the grid to be formed, but when it does, it will be the case. We get to take you through all 16 of our drivers as they make their way into their cars for the purposes of today's racing. But what we've seen from Watkins Glen so far is it really is the case that you could achieve a great lap here, even in a car that's not optimized for straight line speed. But now we take you through that grid as we do have those final standings in. So for the purposes of round 5 of the GT4 Championship, brought to you by Middle of the Pack Racing League at Watkins Glen International, it will be Edwin Offred from Ascension Racing who takes his maiden pole position in the end with 54.678, 2 tenths faster than Tanner Dibble from DNA Racing. They will make up your first row. Jan Sauber in at P3, the pro driver there from DNA Racing, who will be joined on the second row by our pole position driver in the AM class from Middle of the Pack Racing, Justin Bragan. Then Jordan Butler and Jerome Bajulas, the 2 pro drivers, will make up your third row. DNA Racing's driver just ahead of Blue Flag Motorsports' driver, and then we have Jermaine Warren, our second AM driver, line up P7, started off our full throw for Middle of the Pack Racing, joined by John Lauzon from Blue Flag Motorsports, in the end P8 in a difficult qualifying session for the McLaren driver. Stephen Chalafu lines up P9, the best of the rest in the AM class really, with John Welding alongside him in P10, the privateer ahead of the DNA Racing driver on that 5th row, and then we have Albert Brand and Mark Senegal, the 2 AM drivers, are lined up on row number 6. Behind them on the grid, on row number 7, we have Fernando Takashi and Lee Porter. It is the case the privateer ahead of the Middle of the Pack Racing League driver. And then we have Kenny B. Smith and Rodney Felker, the 2 privateers, making up the 8th and final row of our grid for today. Well, as we look down to that grid, speaking of which, it is the case we will be going racing very shortly, and we'll be behind the safety cars. It will take us from turn number 9 all the way through. But now, as we get ready to go here, it will be the case that we've got 20 minutes of racing lined up, and we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out in practice. But it's one thing to be on pole here, it's another thing to bring home the win. And can Onofre, starting on pole for the first time this season, bring home a maiden win as well, or will it be a case that's a bridge too far, as they say? We will find out very shortly as we look to the blimp camera here, and indeed a well-positioned blimp camera. You can see all the field making their way up right now towards turn number 10 and then to 11. The field will bunch right up as they come out of turns 10 and 11 and onto that start-finish straight, and then it will be to our leading pro driver to take us to the green as they make the way on through. But we look from the back of the grid at Kenny B. Smith to the front of the grid here as they all roll the way through the final corner in what is expected to be a rather hot circuit here today in the New York State. And as they come on out, we now wait to go racing. And it's the lights out and away we go for round 5 of the GT4 Championship 2022 as Edwin Offred tries to get a good start here. Tanner Dibble attacking around the outside, but I don't think he's going to be able to find the space. We see Jan Sauber there also looking up the inside, but not close enough to go on the offensive. But as all our drivers come out of turn 1, it's all safe so far as they make the way up the hill for the first time of asking. And as they do, Jordan Butler already getting ahead as they come roaring up the hill and in towards turns 2 and 3. And as they make the way through 4 here, it's all looking fine for Jerome Bajulas right now as we see a free wide run here as they make the way in towards the bus stop chicane. And as they do, we can see Bajulas on the outside here with Bragan and Welding alongside. It's going to be a battle on the brakes and they all navigate their way through, but Bajulas is given the tap there and has to run onto the apex curb on the entry to the bus stop chicane, and free wide does not go into a one wide situation. Oh goodness me, and it looks like there's a McLaren part there, and that was Jordan Butler into the wall. I'm not sure whether there was contact between Butler and another driver, but it's upset the rhythm of a number of drivers, including Chalafu, Mark Senegal, and also I think it's the case we do have Albert Brand involved in that, and Jermaine Warren. And Jermaine Warren, one of the big names here, who's been hit hard at the start of this race. And meanwhile, we look from the pit lane to our drivers who have survived through the opening half of the first lap, and it's Tanner Dibble who's into the lead off camera. He's made the move on Edwin Offred, we believe up into the bus stop chicane, but my goodness, it is the case. We've already had a few drivers come to blows, and I think in the end it was the case we had a McLaren that was stricken just on the exit of the bus stop chicane, and not everybody was able to find the way past it in time without making contact with it. But you can understand from the perspective of Butler, he had the brakes on there and was just hoping everybody would come on through safe and sound, but it wasn't to be today, and they're all in the pits right now. Butler, Warren, Chalafu and Brand all going for fast repairs, and I do wonder whether Senegal and Bajulas will also be able to get repairs to their cars when they come around this time, because they're both a little bit off of the field right now as we come towards the end of our opening lap of this 20 minutes. We see Tanner Dibble leads, heading towards the timeline. So as he comes on through here, we'll take you through that order after one lap of racing. Tanner Dibble from DNA Racing ahead by only 5/10 of a second ahead of Edwin Offred in P2. Jan Salbert in P3 with a great start for the debutant tonight as he stays there in the hunt for the win. John Lauzon in P4, the pro driver here, having made great gains since the start of this race. He's coming through the field very rapidly. Then we've got John Wilding in P5, and then our AM leader Justin Bragan in P6. He's broken away already, 3 seconds clear of Lee Porter, who's running in P7. We then have Fernando Takashi in P8, who's fallen back a little bit but trying to close on up, followed by Kenny B. Smith in P9. Then we have Rodney Velker P10. Keep in mind, Rodney Velker never set a lap in qualifying. He started at the back of the field and he's made his way up to the top 10 already. Jerome Bajulas in at P11, and as they come on around and through here, Bajulas right now involved in that early instant where he's going to soldier on here. He's going to soldier on with the damage to the car. You can see it there on the front right hand side from the driver's perspective, front left from this camera perspective. Here's the case, there's a little bit of crabbing on that tyre. Meanwhile, Mark Senegal P12, and then we have Butler, Warren Chalafu and Brad in the pits, all undergoing repair work right now after that instant at this point on the exit of the bus stop chicane. But we look from the back of our running pack to the head of it right now, and we can see it is the case that Tanner Dibble here under that pressure as they make the way up through a turn. And I'm hearing that Jerome Bajulas has been involved in another major moment. I think Bajulas there has been involved in a bit of an incident. I think it might be of his own doing, unless I'm mistaken, into turn number 5, and therefore he's dropped another place, and the Blue Flag Motorsports driver I think will be coming into the pits at the end of this lap, given the condition of that Porsche 718. But we must head now back to Jan Salber here, who we will be riding on board with as he takes us through turn number 9 and in towards 10. And you can see here the DNA Racing driver trying to close up to an off-road Dibble, but already started to fall back a little bit here from the top 2, and he's got John Lauzon close behind. We can't quite see Lauzon in the rear view mirror because of the angle at which Salber's running that rear view mirror, but we can see now as they roll their way through 10 and 11 how Salber's able to close up through the apex. The Porsche's got those handling strengths, but as they make their way down the start-finish straight, here's the case he doesn't have that speed. In fact, as we look to the gearbox here, you can see it's John Lauzon who is closing up aggressively into turn number 1, as we're hearing that Stephen Chalafu has been involved in an incident at the bus stop chicane. Chalafu having a difficult day, and we're hearing that Albert Brand, it's the case that Brand has had to retire the car. He will not be coming back onto the circuit due to the damage picked up. But right now, Jan Sauer trying to break away from John Lauzon as they make their way through turn number 4. The Porsche trying to charge away as they head up towards the bus stop chicane here. It's going to be very close before the braking zone. Sauber goes defensive as they make the way on in, and as they do here, will Lauzon be able to go outside to inside? No, he has to back out, and then he waits for Sauber to make a mistake, but Sauber says no, I'm not going to make an error. Jerome Bajulas comes into the pit to take repair work, and as they make the way around right now, it is the case that Sauber under huge pressure here, and I think will be dropped from the leaders very shortly as they roll their way into the braking zone for turn number 6. Behind them, meanwhile, right now we can see John Wilding here, 5th place in the overall and in the pro class. He's got the pressure of Justin Bragan, our AM leader, who really wants to come on through, and well, where the rest of the AMs there in the rear of your picture, you can just see their Lee Porter just slightly in the camera as we do pan to Lee Porter here, and he is continuing to break away from Fernando Takashi, but albeit that gap stabilised in about 1.5 seconds. It's only increasing gradually, not at a major rate right now, and that could be a sign of perhaps the tide turning in this battle for P2 in the AM class. We'll have to wait and see, but meanwhile we look from Lee Porter to our leader in the AM class here of Justin Bragan, who is really mounting that pressure on John Wilding, and I do wonder whether Wilding will be hoping at this point, Justin, can you just leave me alone and let me run my race? And I think it will be the case that, well, Bragan might be thinking, you know what, I want to take that position off you, I want to get one over you as a pro driver, and indeed, well, the AM driver has shown a lot of pace and to be right up there with some of our finest pro drivers over the course of the season so far, and he is continuing that trend here today at Watkins Glen as they come towards the end of what is lap number 3, and they roll on through. But as they do, we look to Kenny B. Smith in the meanwhile, the Aston Martin driver here, the privateer, who right now running P4 in the AM class, P9 overall, looking good, staying in the wheel tracks to Takahashi, and on that last lap, taking a sizable portion of time out of Takahashi, 2 temps, and that is quite a degree of time as he rolls his way into turn number 1, and once again here into the right angle right-hander, and as they head on out now, he'll be in the slipstream of that Mercedes, and he'll be able to gain in the long run up towards the bus stop chicane, there's no doubt about that. But the thing is, gaining is one thing. Takahashi, a very tricky driver to pass, and we've seen that time and time again. He knows how to make his car wide when he's back in the BMW M4 and now in that Mercedes. But meanwhile, we have to cut from them to our leaders here, and we can see Tanner Dibble holding that lead. But to be fair, after getting past Edwin Offred, it's now the case the Ascension Racing driver coming back here. He's not letting this go, and we ride on board here with an Offred. He makes his way out of 5 and into 6, into that braking zone, that downhill braking zone, and we can just see as they roll the way through how Offred's able to tilt the nose of the car more into the corner more comfortably compared to Dibble. it's almost as if Dibble has to go through a procedure of brake car, turn into Apex, get on throttle past Apex, whereas Onofre is able to make it a more seamless transition. I think that's where the Aston Martin just has the advantage. It's just able to be more comfortable under that transitional load in braking, particularly in that downhill braking into turn number 6. But you can see on the straights here how initially that Mercedes breaks away with its stronger power plant before, according to the balance of performance, we see Onofre closed up in that slipstream running behind the Mercedes. So it's very interesting to see how the cars are balanced out here at Watkins Glen and how these two front engine rear wheel drive machines are able to stay with one another, but in return it's Dibble who just seems to have that advantage. And Onofre right now waiting, I think, for Dibble to make a mistake that he can capitalise on, but this will be close all the way through as they roll away now into turn number 10. You can see there Dibble just taking a bit more runoff area by comparison with Onofre as they both made their way out the final corner close to the wall. I think there was even a slight graze to the wall from Dibble there, unless I'm very much mistaken, as they come across that timeline this time around in the long sequence running on down. You can see Sauber just behind them, but Sauber is being caught up by John Lauzon here as they roll the way into turn 1 once again. 8 minutes have passed, 12 to go plus the final lap, and as they do now, John Lauzon staying with the P3 driver. And to give credit to Sauber right now in that Porsche 718, I'm not going to be mean when I say this, that 718 is not staying there based at straight line speed right now. It is staying there because Sauber is making it drive through those corners fantastically. He is holding onto that apex speed, and it's giving him enough of a run on the McLaren down these straights here to stay alive, and that is credit to the debutants tonight as they make their way through the bus stop chicane. And as they come through this time, you can see the top four starting to creep away from John Wilding, who right now has got a little bit of pressure behind him from Justin Bragan. And well, Justin Bragan right now, the AM driver here, who takes a much better run through turn 5 compared to Wilding. He's closing up ever still. He's now 7.5 seconds clear of Lee Porter. Would you believe it? As we see Wilding there outbrakes himself into turn number 6. I think Bragan's going to be keying up the move short. He's going to look around the outside here of the pro driver, and we'll have to see it as they make the way into turn 6. But keep in mind, of course, Bragan here will try to go for a cutback using the camber of the road to turn the car in, and as he rolls out the corner here, he's right there. He could reach out and grab the rear wing off of Wilding. He won't do that, of course, otherwise he'll face a financial penalty. But as they make the way down towards turn number 7, here's the case here. Bragan just stays behind right now. I think respecting the fact that he'd be battling for position, track position, not for points. We see Wilding there making another error, running slightly onto the grass on exit of turn number 8. He's really not happy in that car right now as the Mercedes driver Wilding. And meanwhile, Justin Bragan, I think it is music to his ears, both the sound of that V8 plus also the fact that he's running very comfortably behind the pro driver in front. But as they make the way out the corner of turn 10 and in towards 11, we do look to Lee Porter, meanwhile, who has got the grime pressure behind him of Fernando Takashi and Kenny B. Smith. You can see these three all battling for P2 in the AM class, battling technically for what is 7th overall in the standings. So they make the way out. Brilliant camera angle that. It shows you how close they get to the wall. But as they make the way down, Justin Bragan has found his way up the inside of Wilding. We've just caught the end of it there, and he's gained the place of Wilding for P5 overall. No change in class positions for the two of them, of course, because they are in separate driver classes. But now can Justin Bragan break away from John Wilding and potentially close up to the battle for the top 4 in the pro class? Now that'd be something to see, because he could really throw a spanner into the works. But you can see in return now John Wilding's not letting this go. He's looking to the inside into the bus stop chicane here. It's going to be too wide under braking, and Wilding in the end takes the lead position as Bragan backs out. They're very sensibly Bragan knowing when to attack and when to wait, showing a game of patience as they roll down into turn number 5 once more. But as they do, we look back to Lee Porter here, and we're saying only moments ago how these three are coming together very rapidly indeed as they roll through turn number 5, and all in 3 different machines. It's the McLaren of Lee Porter, the Mercedes of Fernando Takashi, and the Aston Martin of Kenny B. Smith. And as they make their way down through turn number 6 right now, we love to see 3 different manufacturers within the GT4 class all close together, and this goes to show you how the balance of the characteristics of the cars, plus also the drivers behind the steering wheel, are making these cars battle for position very closely indeed as they roll the way on through. But as they come through turn number 7, Kenny B. Smith, they're actually losing out a bit over the last couple, because he's dropped a couple of attempts, and Lee Porter started to up the pace as they make their way down the back straight. But as they come roaring down towards turn at number 8 once more, we can see how it is the case. Whilst they are battling for position here, Rodney Felker, meanwhile, in a very lonely P10 overall, P5 in the AM class here. Well, I think right now he would bite your arm off and take that position, given the traffic, the difficulties and troubles he had in qualifying, where he wasn't able to set a lap time. However, he does have to worry about the fact he's got Mark Senegal, who's closing up at him at approximately a second a lap right now, and that gap is down to 4 seconds, and it's still closing fast. I would imagine that Senegal is going to be there come the final 2 laps, battling for that position. And then we've got Jerome Madulas, who is 31 seconds behind, with Butler behind him, Warren and Chalafu, who are the last of our runners, given the incident that occurred on the opening lap, that drama, if you will. But as they make the way around right now, it is the case. Whatever drama there will have to be settled in the steward's room afterwards, as we do see here Edwin Offred, who holding on to that P2. He's chasing after the leader, but he's just not close enough to go for the move. But this time he is a bit closer in the route towards the bus stop chicane. He takes a look to the inside, just a quick glimpse. He's not close enough to put himself fully alongside. But meanwhile, Justin Braggan here, battling side by side with John Wilding, but he's on the outside to inside line again. And as they make the way on through, Braggan losing out, but he's putting that pressure on Wilding. Meanwhile, Lee Porter now definitely under pressure from Fernando Takashi. As a bit of cloud comes over the Watkins Glen circuit, and we can see here in the middle of the pack, racing driver under pressure from that Mercedes behind it. It's looking menacing, and it definitely is menacing. That is Fernando Takashi, who would love to take that P2 of the Lee Porter here for his championship campaign, as they roll away downhill through turn number 6 and head up towards 7. And as they coming out this time with only 7 minutes to go plus that final lap, I think now Takashi is starting to get a move on here. He's starting to settle into that rhythm. You see Kenny Smith is also there. He's a little bit further back as Takashi goes a bit wide there, coming through the apex of turn number 7. That'll give Lee Porter the best part of at least 2-3 attempts to play with extra now as they make the way down towards turn number 8. Lee Porter has not put a foot wrong yet compared to Takashi, and so it is the case right now. Lee Porter is staying alive in that P2 position through his consistency. There's no doubt about that, and also his outright pace as he makes his way up the hill into turn number 9 and rolls his way on through. That goes a little bit wide of apex there, but to be fair, a late apex is a bad thing. And now he heads towards turn number 10. As meanwhile, speaking of a driver who's been battling for position, overall position for so long, Justin Braggan here, the leader of the AM class. He whacks the wall there, my goodness. And Justin Braggan, well, if he needed something to knock sense into him in terms of perhaps he's pushing a bit too hard in that battle for P5, that would be the thing that does it if it is going to knock any sense into him, because that whack to the wall will not be good for the left-hand side of the suspension right now, whether it's on the front axle or the rear, particularly if he did hit it hard on the front left tyre. But it looks as though it was a centre line hit in terms on the door panel instead. So as a result, I think Justin Braggan has got away with that one. He's used up one of his 9 lives as he makes his way in the pursuit here. John Wilding down towards the bus stop chicane. This time he's going to take the inside line into the braking zone. Wilding on the outside to inside line. Who's going to back out here if either of them? When Wilding backs out in the end, I think Wilding at this point is respecting the fact that Braggan is really trying to go for it and is instead just waiting now to let Braggan go, because there's no need for them to battle ideally. And if anything, it could be the case that Braggan's able to pull Wilding up to Lauzon, Salva and Offred and Dibble, albeit we haven't got long left in this race, so it may be the case now that they just settle their differences and leave it at that, although we'd hope not, because we want to see more battling between them, of course. But meanwhile, speaking of battling building up, we can see Fernando Takashi as we ride on board here with the privateer in the Mercedes AMG. He has closed up over this lap so far to the back of Lee Porter. That gap now 3.5 tenths. They break their way into turn number 7. And you can see the differences in lines between the two drivers here. It's very interesting to see Takashi taking a much more aggressive entry into turn 7, where he's pointing the car into the apex curve earlier compared to Lee Porter. And that's what's giving Lee Porter the opportunity to get on the power just a little bit earlier on corner exit, because he's taking a more symmetrical line through the corner. But Takashi, to be fair, using the weight of that Mercedes, plus also its engine grunt, in order to be able to come through the corner with a similar amount of speed to Porter. So these two cars really playing out differently, and of course that's the difference in the drivetrains. The Mercedes being front engine rear wheel drive, the McLaren being mid engine rear wheel drive, where it's the case that McLaren has got more rotation in the car naturally, as we see there on our timing tower. Tanner Dibble sets the fastest lap of the race at 54.527, and that now means he's got an advantage of 1 second over Edwin Offred as they make the way into the final quarter. And well, I think Dibble at this point now really trying to leave an Offred in his wake, and we'll have to wait and see whether it's enough or whether an Offred's got something in the tank. And we stay on board with this battle for P2 in the AM class, P7 overall, with Takahashi right now losing out a little bit there in the run to turn 1, but we see their Lee Porter running slightly wide, but he'll get away with that. The track limits here are quite lenient at turn number 1 as they make the way up the hill through turns 2, 3 and 4 in rapid succession. It is the case that Takahashi not close enough this time to look for that potential move. He has to just wait and watch and try to close up later on the lap, but he is looking as though right now these two very even on pace. It only needs one of them to make a mistake for this battle to disappear off into the ether and potentially reappear later on should the other driver make a mistake in return. But right now Fernando Takashi definitely really had to play the game of cat and mouse here, and he just cannot find a way to catch up to the mouse that is Lee Porter to effect an overtake. But as we look from them to John Lauzon, it is the case another game of cat and mouse here, where the very aggressive cat on the McLaren 570S versus what is the Porsche 718 as they make the way down towards turn number 8. And you can see here how Sauber having to go defensive. He's worried about the fact that Lauzon's going to have to run around the outside. He's right to do so here as Lauzon tries to go for it but runs wide, but he uses the runoff area there to keep the car running. But now it is the case as they make the way into turn number 9 as we hear that Wilding and Bragan continue to swap places through turn number 9 and up towards 10 very shortly, in fact through turn number 8 and up towards 9. And as they do at this point, it is the case right now Lauzon putting that pressure on. Well, how will he make it materialise in terms of a look at a move? Well, we ride on board here with Lauzon as he comes out the final corner, and Sauber there gets a good run, but Lauzon a much faster run as Takashi's found his way past Lee Porter in the meantime. But we focus here on this battle for P3 in the Pro Class here, and Lauzon's going to be made to go round the outside versus the debutant. And of course, for Lauzon here, it's a bit of an unknown. He may be wondering what will Sauber do in terms of that defensive pressure, but he's managing it very well right now. And this battle continues. They made the way out to turn 1, and now through turns 2, 3 and 4, and well, we're hearing there from Lee Porter in the Twitch chat. There's a wall hit in the end that's lost him the position to Takahashi, but meanwhile Lauzon here will have no such issues. He comes out turn 4 on the inside, and he's got the speed here, he's got the overspeed now. Cal Sauber brow break his rival into the bus stop chicane. He's going to look at it, but in the end it's not enough, and John Lauzon with a better run through turns 1 through to 4 and up into the bus stop chicane gets the move done. He's up into P3. Meanwhile, John Wilding has got back ahead of Bragan as they make the way coming through the bus stop chicane. He's back up into P5 overall, and it's the Projo versus the AM leader as they make the way down through turn number 6. Meanwhile, behind them, Fernando Takashi after Lee Porter having that wall hit, as we've heard, it is the case that Takashi now up to P2 in the AM class, P7 overall, and he'll try to break away with not long to go. It is the case they're on the penultimate lap right now, based on a quick method approximation here with the fact our leader is making his way down the back straight towards turn number 8. They will have an 11th lap in this race to do, and right now Takashi just needs to keep it on the straight and narrow if he wants to bring home another major podium result. We'll have to wait and see whether he can do it in practice, as meanwhile we look from Takahashi to our leader Tanner Dibble, who is now 1.1 seconds clear of Edwin Offred as they make the way through turn number 9. And it looks as though Dibble, based on the trajectory of the last couple of laps where he's gained a 10th or 2 on an Offred, has done enough as they make the way through the final 2 corners and onwards very shortly to that final 11th lap of racing here today. But as they head on out, it is the case, I think, an Offred, as we get some clarification there from an Offred in the Twitch chat, it's saying the Aston Martin didn't feel the same compared to the first few laps. Indeed it does look as though that Aston Martin just falling away a little bit, as we see Stefan Chalafu moving over to the inside there and just giving space to the leaders. He is a lap down, of course, thanks to that incident on the opening lap. But as we go on to that final lap now, all eyes will be on Jan Sauber. Can the DNA Racing driver find a way to get back onto that bottom step of the podium? Last time on the lap previous, it was the case that Lauzon found his way on through. Now, can Sauber do the same on this final lap? It's going to be hard. The Porsche doesn't have the straight line speed, but they're very close here as they make the way out towards the bus stop chicane. It's Lauzon on the inside. On the left of your picture, it's Sauber on the right. And as they make the way under braking, Sauber has to back out here, but he'll try and get the run out of the chicane and down into turns 5 and 6, where that Porsche should carry more speed in the run on down. As they come on through this time, it doesn't look as though Sauber's close enough to try and get that slingshot momentum out of 5 and up towards 6. He stays there 3.5 tenths back, and as they roll the way down into turn number 6, it is the case that he's staying right there with his rival, doing everything he can in order to try and just eke out an extra 100th, an extra 1,000th here and there in the Porsche 718. He just does not have the speed on the straights between the corners, and that is what is holding him back as they roll the way out to 7 and now down the back straight towards turn number 8 they roll. And we can see here it's the case the DNA Racing driver ever close, but not close enough. He's going to have to send it in terms of a lunge if he wants to go for the position, but I think he's going to stay back here and wait to see if Lauzon makes an error. He runs a bit wide. Will it present an opportunity up into 9? I don't think so. He looks the inside, but he's too far back to affect the pass here. He just has to keep that pressure on. Man, not too many corners to go. Speaking of not too many corners to go here, Sauber looks the inside into turn 10. There's no space. We do have to cut away from them because Tanner Dibble makes his way out of the final corner, and as he heads to the line, it will be the checker flag for DNA Racing's Tanner Dibble, who takes the win overall in the Pro Class at Watkins Glen ahead of Edwin Offer in a brilliant P2, and it will be John Lauzon who holds on to the finish line to take P3 ahead of Jan Sauber P4, and it will be John Wilding who comes home in P5 when all is said and done ahead ahead of Justin Brangan, who takes P6 overall and the win in the AM class in dramatic and emphatic fashion. And then it will be Fernando Takashi, who comes home P2 in the AM class ahead of Lee Porter in the end, and Kenny B. Smith comes home P4 in class, P9 overall right down the tail, and Rodney Felker will give the man credit, ladies and gentlemen. If anybody deserves a round of applause, he does, because he started from the back of the field. He's come home P10, P5 in the AM class in the end, Mark Senegal in the end, P11, P6 in the AM class, and then we have to wait a little bit longer for Jerome Bajulas to come on round after a difficult day of racing for the Blue Flag Motorsports driver, with that major whack on the opening lap out of the bus stop chicane in the run down towards turn number 5. And as he rolls his way on through here, it is a day he will not want to remember, and one he'll want to move on from very quickly, as the Blue Flag Motorsports driver will come on across the line. P6 in the Pro Class, P12 overall. It will then be very shortly Jordan Butler who comes on through, the DNA Racing driver who really was one of the catalysts for that incident down at turn 5 effectively, coming out of the bus stop chicane and into the corner. We're not saying he caused it, but he was definitely in the mix of it with the car pointing the wrong way. But the DNA Racing driver here will try to bounce back in a week's time at Daytona. There's no doubt about that. We know how strong Jordan Butler is. It has not worked out today. And then the last of our finishers on the lead lap will be Jermaine Warren, who comes home at P14. Well, that is everybody finished and classified. Let's take you through those race results subject to stewards' decisions. So in the end, after 20 minutes of racing in round 5 of the middle of the pack racing GT4 Championship for 2022, as brought to you here at Watkins Glen International and iRacing, Tanner Dibble taking the overall win in the end by 1.5 seconds ahead of Edwin Offrey, and John Lauzon completing the overall podium in P3. Jan Sauer P4, John Walden P5, ahead of the AM winner Justin Brangan P6, Fernando Takashi P7, Lee Porter P8, Kenny B. Smith P9, and Rodney Felker completing that overall top 10. But as we look from the overall finishing standings to the classes themselves, we start off with the Pro Class, of course, and it is the case in the Pro Class. Tanner Dibble taking that win in a closely fought battle with Offrey, with John Lauzon having to beat Jan Sauber to the line in the end for the final step on the podium. Keep your eyes on Jan Sauber. I definitely reckon at Daytona and also in the final 3 rounds when we head to the endurance stage, it will be the case Jan Sauber is going to be one to watch. He has made his name known in his debut tonight in that P4. John Wilding P5, Jerome Bajulas P6, and Jordan Butler P7. All of our pro drivers finishing on the lead lap. And then when we come to our AM class, it is the case we can see here Justin Brangan taking that win by 9.6 seconds in the end ahead of Fernando Takashi. And well, Justin Brangan definitely putting himself back on form today ahead of Takashi, and Lee Porter finishing on the bottom step of the podium P3 ahead of Kenny B. Smith. Very close run to the end for the two of them, separated by only half a second. Then Rodney Felker P5, Mark Senegal P6, Jermaine Warren P7, Stefan Chalafou finishing a lap down after recovering from that incident on lap 1 in P8, and Albert Brand, unfortunately, with that early retirement. They couldn't get the car back out after the whack on lap number 1. The middle of the pack racing driver having to retire early, finishing at P9. But that is it, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of our results from today. And now it is time for us to wrap up. And with that, thank you very much for watching. And if you do want to know more about the Middle of the Pack Racing League community in terms of what we do and the leagues we run, why not check us out, our official Discord, the link available there. Alternatively, you can always check us at our Twitter, and that is twitter.com/MOP Racing. But now our drivers will be packing up their bags and making their way to Daytona International Speedway 4. That will be our 6th round of the series, indeed our final round in the America stage. It will be taking place, the racing, next Wednesday on what will be, unless I'm very much mistaken, doing some quick mental math here, the 6th of July, but we bring you all the racing action as if it were live on Sunday, the 10th of July, 2022. It'll be the second of our 3 feature rounds, 45 minutes of racing at a circuit that is known to deliver. If it's not in the infield section, it'll be the slipstream passes that are on the oval sections, and you will not want to miss it, or at least you won't after today's Watkins Glen race. I'm sure the attention will only be raised higher. But until then, thank you very much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. We have been the Middle of the Pack Racing League community. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling. Happy Independence Day to all of you tuning in from the United States of America tomorrow. And until then, remember, most importantly, to stay on track. Good night.